Hey everybody, it's Dan Harris, host of the FantasyPros Football Podcast. Thanks for checking out our video series. Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 waiver wire pickups for Week 5 of the 2020 fantasy football season. At number 10, let's start with TRE'QUAN Smith. Smith finally found the end zone on Sunday, catching 4 passes for 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Michael Thomas may be back this week, but Jared Cook was not able to practice at all after his groin injury last week, so he seems unlikely to play on Sunday. The Chargers are a tough matchup for receivers, and the Saints do have a bye the following week, so there are better options at wide receiver. But you did see Scotty Miller and Mike Evans have big games last week against Los Angeles, so in a pinch, Smith is a passable option. At number 9, let's talk about Chase Edmonds. Kenyon Drake has been a massive disappointment for 2 weeks in extremely soft matchups. Although he got a little banged up last week, he sounds like he's going to be okay for this week's game against the Jets. And even though Edmonds is a good bet for 6 to 9 touches per game, and he scored a touchdown this week, you couldn't start him if so, particularly against the Jets and their solid run defense. But Edmonds should be considered at worst a top-flight handcuff for Drake, who, remember, was in a walking boot for most of camp with a vague injury that could still be bothering him. At best, Edmonds will carve out a bigger role anyway, just by virtue of his effectiveness. At number 8, it's Laviska Shenault Jr. Shenault saw another 6 targets and had 5 catches in Week 4, just like he had in Week 3. But this time, he turned them into 86 receiving yards to go along with his 5 yards rushing. Shenault continues to get more involved in the game plan. Jacksonville hasn't even gotten quite as creative as they can be with someone with his skill set. DJ Chark's return helped open up room for Shenault, so expect him to continue to see a decent amount of targets and get even more involved going forward. With matchups against Houston and Detroit upcoming, he's someone you can plug and play if you need to. At number 7, it's Tim Patrick. Now, I wish the Broncos would give Jerry Jeudy more snaps, but it's Patrick who's not only seeing more snaps, but getting more targets. And I get that nobody wants a part of this Broncos passing attack given the quarterback situation, and they play New England next week. But Courtland Sutton is out. KJ Hamler is battling an injury. Noah Fant is going to be out for this game. Someone like Patrick, who is seeing work and targets, is worth picking up, even if he's not the sexiest name. At number 6, let's talk about Scotty Miller. Miller has been a solid fantasy option except in Week 2 when his fantasy managers really needed him. But he's now got back-to-back games with 83 yards, the latter one coming with a touchdown. The Bucs have a real short turnaround here with the Bears on Thursday night, but Chris Godwin is surely going to be out. O.J. Howard is done for the season. Mike Evans is battling through an ankle injury. There just aren't that many options for Tom Brady to throw the ball to, and Miller is getting the looks. At number 5, it's Justin Jackson. Austin Eckler is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with his hamstring strain. And although Joshua Kelly should be the primary ball carrier for the Chargers, Jackson is going to get touches. Kelly has now lost a fumble in each of his past 2 games, and remember, he's still a rookie. It's unlikely that Anthony Lynn is just going to turn over the keys to the car directly to him. The Chargers get the Saints and the Jets next, hardly great matchups, but there should be a floor for volume, and later matchups with the Dolphins, Jaguars, and Raiders should be fruitful. At number 4, it's Damien Harris. Harris came off the IR just before the Patriots game against the Chiefs, and he promptly rumbled for 100 yards. And with Sony Michel now on IR, there's a little more room to breathe in the New England backfield now. But there are still impediments to Harris's value. Rex Burkhead and James White are still going to factor in, and the goal line back in New England is Cam Newton. Still, on a team that wants to rely on the run heavily, you want to roster that lead back. And after Monday night, that certainly looks like Harris. Checking in next is T. Higgins. Higgins' ascension to fantasy relevance came a little earlier than expected, but it's here. Over his last 2 games, Higgins has 9 grabs on 16 targets for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 13 yards rushing. Joe Burrow trusts his young receiver, and given the Cincinnati defense, you know there's going to be plenty of pass attempts to go around. This isn't quite a slam dunk yet for Higgins. Burrow continues to target AJ Green regularly, and if the veteran can ever find his old form, that may negatively impact Higgins. But Higgins is an ad, and an immediate one. Checking in at number 2, it's Dearness Johnson. Nick Chubb is on IR, and he's expected to miss about 6 weeks with his knee injury. The primary beneficiary is, of course, Kareem Hunt, who is already excelling in his role as the 1B to Chubb's 1A. But with Chubb out, Hunt isn't suddenly going to turn into some 25 touch back. And on a team that has been averaging more than 200 rushing yards per game, extra carries have to go somewhere. Johnson has seen limited work in his young career, but he should get plenty of touches going forward. And given how he has looked when he has gotten action, there should be plenty of fantasy value. And your number one waiver wire pickup of the week is ALSHON Jeffrey. Look, Jeffrey is not a clear-cut number one option this week, okay? He's largely in line with Johnson, Higgins, Harris, and even Jackson at around a 15% fab bid. But absent an injury, none of those running backs has a path to being a high-end option at his position. Jeffrey, however, does have that path just by virtue of stepping on the field. In fact, a healthy Jeffrey should almost guarantee you wide receiver 2 production, especially considering all the injuries to the Eagles' receiving corps. This is more of a longer-term play. Even if Jeffrey returns this week or next, he's got Pittsburgh and then Baltimore. But if you're not desperate for someone right away and you're looking at a long-term play, Jeffrey is the guy for you. And that'll do it for my top 10 waiver wire pickups for week 5 of the 2020 fantasy football season. It's not a slam dunk pick for waiver wire pickups, but there are plenty of options who can get you over the hump and upcoming bye weeks. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel here at youtube.com/FantasyPros and follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FantasyPros so you don't miss any of the great content that we're going to be producing all season long.